Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Now, I know some of you grade 11 students are turning 18 pretty soon, and you know what that means, right? Voter registration is literally right around the corner. But here's the thing, registering to vote, that's really just the starting line of your civic duty. Think about it. From the school policies you follow every single day, to the barangay curfews that kind of dictate your weekend plans, to government decisions on public transport, you have been living inside political systems your entire life. So today, I'm putting on my master teacher hat because this explainer is designed to give you the academic tools to absolutely ace your exams, and honestly, more importantly, the civic tools to actually change your communities. Let's get into it.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the meaning of politics, government versus governance, the types and consequences of power, a real-world barangay flooding scenario, and finally, actionable steps to good governance.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1. The meaning of politics. Before we even get into the textbook definition here, I want you to realize something. You do not have to be a politician to be involved in politics. You actually experience it constantly. So here's your first major exam alert. Politics is defined as the process through which groups make collective decisions about who gets what, when, and how. I really want you to remember that politics isn't just this distant thing that happens in Congress or Malacanang. It happens literally anywhere people have to decide things together. When your family is arguing over what's watched on TV, or your class is trying to agree on a project theme, that is collective decision-making. That, my friends, is politics in action. Now, what's really fascinating is how we apply a uniquely Filipino lens to all of this. Local scholars like Jose Abueva and Virgilio Enriquez, they remind us that our politics is deeply, deeply shaped by our cultural values. Take utang na loob, or a debt of gratitude. It creates these unwritten obligations that often totally dictate political loyalty. Let's be real, it's usually the reason you feel pressured to support your uncle's favorite candidate, right? Then there's hiya, or social propriety, which might actually stop a citizen from questioning an authority figure in public. Pakisama prioritizes group harmony, which sometimes means people will just suppress their own disagreements just to keep the peace. And then there's kapwa, our shared inner self, which is the absolute foundation of collective actions like bayanihan. You really have to understand these values if you want to understand how we actually relate to authority here in the Philippines. Moving right along to Section 2, government versus governance. Okay, people use these two words interchangeably all the time, but in political science, they are entirely different concepts. So here is another massive exam alert for you. Government, that's a formal institution. Its scope is strictly limited to the state, and its accountability is vertical. That means politicians answer to voters at the ballot box, top down. But governance, that is a much broader, way more inclusive process. It definitely involves the formal government, yeah, but it also includes NGOs, private businesses, and citizens, exactly like you. The focus isn't just on that top-down authority anymore. It's about coordination and participation. Accountability in governance is multi-directional. You can kind of think of it like a team sport rather than a solo event. So when did this whole concept of shared governance actually become law for us? Well, the year 1991 is absolutely key here. Before 1991, the Philippines was highly centralized. I mean, practically every major decision had to come all the way from what people called Imperial Manila. But then, the passage of the Local Government Code, or Republic Act 7160, completely changed the game. This law legally institutionalized shared governance by devolving power. It essentially recognized that local communities and barangays actually have the authority and the responsibility to manage their own affairs. It literally brought the power to make changes right to your front doorstep. Next up, Section 3, Types and Consequences of Power. Let's talk about whose decisions actually count. To truly understand how governance works, we have to look under the hood at the engine running the whole machine, power. French and Raven identified 5 distinct types. First, notice how reward power is all about gaining something. Think of a barangay captain promising road repairs in exchange for your family's support. See how easily that maps onto our cultural value of utang na loob? Then you've got coercive power, which relies entirely on fear of punishment, like a traffic enforcer threatening you with a ticket. Legitimate power is based on official, rightful authority, like following your principal's rules. Expert power is rooted in trusted knowledge. That's when you listen to a local health worker during an outbreak because they actually know what they're talking about. And finally, referent power. This one comes from pure admiration, like when you join a neighborhood cleanup drive simply because a youth leader you really respect is the one organizing it. Now, when someone actually exercises one of those types of power, there are really 3 possible reactions from the people. We can see Yuki's 3 consequences of power super clearly in our own local contexts. First, there's compliance, where you just go along with something without fully believing in it, like Jeepney drivers modernizing their vehicles even though they personally disagree with the mandate. Second, there's commitment, where you genuinely, fully support the cause. Think of youth enthusiastically volunteering for an SK program. And third, there is resistance, where you just actively oppose the decision altogether. Now, you have to ask yourself, which of these outcomes do you think leads to the most sustainable, long-term governance? I mean, sure, force might get you temporary compliance, but true, lasting progress, that requires commitment. All right, let's put all this theory into practice with Section 4, the barangay flooding scenario. Okay, picture this scenario. Your barangay drainage is completely busted, and it's causing massive flooding every single time it rains. You go to the barangay captain, but they say, sorry, there's simply no budget. But wait, a local NGO steps up and offers to help fund it, if the community pitches in. And the youth volunteers? They're totally fired up and want to organize a digging crew. But here's the catch, barangay elections are just 3 months away. So, who actually has the power to solve this mess? If we rely purely on the barangay captain's formal, legitimate power, well, we're stuck, right? Because there are no official funds. This right here is exactly where that broader network of governance comes in. The NGO, the youth, the citizens, we all have to work together to unblock the system, literally and figuratively.
We can actually break down this whole flooding crisis using political scientist Andrew Haywood's 3 dimensions of power. First up is decision-making. That's the visible stuff, who actually gets to force or persuade the allocation of whatever emergency funds might exist. But look closely at the second point, agenda setting. Guys, this is a massive and often totally invisible form of power. Because if the captain just keeps the flooding issue off the barangay council meeting agenda entirely, well, officially the problem doesn't even exist. And finally, thought control. Let's say there's a narrative going around that the flooding is happening just because residents keep throwing trash in the streets. That narrative shapes the belief that the citizens are solely responsible, which conveniently shifts the focus far, far away from holding the government accountable for terrible infrastructure. Sneaky, right?
Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, Steps to Good Governance. Figuring out exactly what we, as everyday citizens, can do to bypass the sneaky power blocks is the whole point of this explainer. So to solve our flooding crisis, we're going to apply the UN ESCAP's 8 indicators of good governance. You see 3 main action steps here, but trust me, they actually trigger all 8 indicators. Step 1, participate. Actually show up to your barangay assemblies. That is your direct, formal line to setting project priorities. Step 2, demand accountability and transparency. Don't just take no budget for an answer. Ask to see the actual budget reports, ensuring leaders answer for their decisions openly. Step 3, be consensus-oriented. You've got to work to bridge the gap between the government, the youth, and the NGO. But remember, for this to truly be good governance, you have to ensure the collaborative solution is responsive to immediate needs, like fixing it before the next typhoon hits. It must be effective and efficient, so you aren't wasting the NGO's donated resources. It has to be equitable and inclusive, meaning no street is left flooded regardless of who happens to live there. And finally, everything must strictly follow the rule of law, making sure absolutely no shortcuts are taken when it comes to community safety. All right, as we wrap up this masterclass, I want to synthesize everything we've talked about into one interlocking system. Politics is the process of deciding who gets what. Power is the underlying foundation that determines whose voices actually count in making those decisions. And governance? Governance is how those decisions are ultimately carried out by everyone working together. Listen, if you don't understand power, you cannot fully grasp why politics works the way it does or how governance either succeeds or fails. They are completely 100% inseparable. So, here's the deal. You now have the language to understand these systems, and you have the tools to question them. As you approach voting age and hopefully become a lot more active in your own communities, your civic duty isn't ending. It is just beginning. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. You have the language, you have the tools. So how will you use your power in the next election? And honestly, every single day after that. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I will catch you in the next explainer.